Okay, hello. Just moved my hair back off the mic there. So I've decided that I am going to go back into this wet painting. My name is Anya Devine, and have a look at the links below if you want to know more about me and workshops and things that I run. There'll be a lot of online work now, of course, with lockdown. This morning I started out doing this wet self-portrait, and I decided that it was too wet to work into again, and I used one that I had earlier started instead. But having done that, I feel like I quite like the challenge of bringing order back into this quite chaotic self-portrait. And one of the things I love to do is to experiment with lifting out the paint. And so while this is drying, I'll just get my paper towel across there, sorry. While this is drying, it's actually a really good time to explore how lifting out works. And what I'm first going to do here is to soften this edge where the cheek stops. So it's possible to lift out there. It's quite a nice thing. I'm not going to disturb that too much because I kind of like the effect. Okay, so let me start with where would I begin to make order? I think working on the right hand side of the iris here. And it's still wet enough for me to print where the white of the eye will stop and the iris will begin. And so I've printed off where the iris begins here. And I think what I'll do here is lift out some of the shadow of the upper lid in order to make the white of the eye on this side. And the ledge of the upper eyelash line the edge of the upper eye of the lower eyelid might be established there by lifting out. So I'm using a craft brush. This is quite springy. It's a flat brush, and it allows me to get a nice clean edge into the more fluid shapes that were already there, that are almost dry. And now I'm mixing in some alizarin crimson, because when I look at myself in the mirror I feel like this area has more warmth to it, and so I'm going to establish something of the direction of the eye there. It's still wet, so too wet to make a clear shape, but it allows me to get the general shadow shape there. And then I wanted to find the shadow that runs up to meet the eyeball, the underside of the lower lid there on the left. And it looks to me like that same shadow color is there too, and possibly even out here where the face meets the hair, a little bit there. I like that I'm beginning to look at myself. I'm beginning to see myself looking back at me here. There's something kind of exciting about that, and I think more than the last portrait I'm going to do my best to go in a slower, more considered way here, and really decide what do I want to leave alone. And even while it's still wet, it's possible, that I've just touched the alizarin in there and recognized that actually the surface is still quite wet. And I kind of liked the way the alizarin bled into that. Now, do you see where I had the nostril earlier is going to be far too far to the right in relation to that eye? So what I'm going to do, just decided to darken the top of that eye. So what I'm going to do is to drop some alizarin in here to begin the nose, to begin relocating the nose over there. And in the same way, I'll need to relocate the mouth over a little bit further to the left as well. So I'm just going to mix a bit of sap green into the alizarin crimson. You can see how fluid it is on the palette there, but it does have quite a dominant dark at the same time. And dropping a line down from the middle of the iris. That's roughly where the corner of the mouth extends to, maybe not quite that far over. And so I'm establishing the corner of the mouth there, and recognizing that there'll be maybe a little bit more shadow around there. Just finding the position of mouth and the nose in relation to each other. And the shadow underneath here could also be established now. in order to further move that mouth across. So just wetting it, putting a little bit of yellow ochre on. When I close my mouth, I recognise that it's not all light. The lower lip is, let me just do it. The lower lip is lighter than the upper lip generally, but it's not so clear that the difference between skin and lip over on this side, the difference between skin and lower lip is barely visible, so it helps, I think, to have that edge lost. Yeah, at least for now. And as I move around for the chin, I'm going to put a touch of the yellow ochre mixed with the cadmium orange in order to get the roundedness of the chin here. Sometimes colour is enough to make us, rather than to have to outline something clearly, sometimes just placing a colour there is a way to highlight a part that's coming into the light. And I'll do some of that colour here too. So this is yellow ochre mixed with cadmium orange, and it's coming into the blue. So in this case I started by explaining the eye a bit clearly, and working from that I'm deciding where things are in relationship to that eye. I'm going to use some ultramarine blue and Van Dyke brown to establish the eyebrow on that side, and then looking, leaning back from it, I can clearly see if I'm happy with the position of things. It's Maisie's just joined us there now, slightly distracted. What are you doing? I don't think there's anything she can do major damage to here. I'll be taking her out for a wander soon. Okay. Alright, so what I'm going to do now is clean the brush, because there's quite dark colour on the brush there, and I'm going to lift out the shape of the upper lip where it meets the skin above it on this side. And instead of instead of having to draw the mouth, I'm using the line that's still there, and I'm just lifting out what isn't mouth rather than painting what is, and in the same way I'm going to lift out the V shape here below the philtrum, below the dip in the philtrum, in order to get the V shape of the clarity of where the lips meet the skin above. And to do that I have to stop talking, you see. It's a bit tricky. I'm putting in some red first actually, because it seems like there needs to be a bit more of a hill here and a bit more of a warm colour. Just a touch of quinacridine or alizarin would work there as well, any kind of a dark colour, dark red first, and then I'm going to, I'll need to do it on the other side as well. So here really I'm ending up adding on rather than lifting out for the lips, at the moment anyway. And what I could lift out is maybe where it dips down, maybe it doesn't dip down quite as far as that. So just a clean damp brush and disturbing the edge rather than having to rub it all out or start again, just disturbing the edge enough that I can re-establish clean line dividing the lips when it's dry. And I'm going to use something equally dark as that side for over here now. Corner of the mouth there maybe. Yeah, it's okay, we're getting there. And I think I want to do something here, like link those two together, maybe with some yellow ochre. Not only link but merge the colours a bit so they're not so demanding of attention, these edges. Whatever has got the highest point of contrast will be where your eye is drawn to. And with my eyes half closed, it seems to me like this area needs to be softened a bit. this outer edge of that shadow isn't really helping with form. You'll find some colours come off easily, some colours are really stubborn, and I would say just lift off as much as you can and then recognise that you can come back in with a clean dark colour to identify things a bit more clearly once it's dry anyway. And it's quite a satisfying thing, just pushing and pulling with colour and tone over a surface that's nondescript but has just enough information in it. And you can still have that spontaneous attitude as earlier with the really wet and wet carry-on. And so injecting the crimson there was satisfying to me. Maybe put some more crimson in here again. Still wet there. So it'll take me a wee while to define the nose because it's all very wet, the paper around the nose. But sometimes you can get away with a nose if it's between the eyes and the mouth. The viewer will assume it's a nose, and you can get away really with very little. So maybe just when it's dry enough, I might just inject a nostril or something there. But I do want to find out what's happening at this edge rather than just leave it that shape. I think I need to soften the shadow here so that it doesn't read as the end of the nose, and that it'll highlight so this is the dip where the philtrum is, and then it'll highlight the little bumps of light between the philtrum and the upper lip. You know, that edge of skin there. Now there's a danger, it's only a big piece of paper, but you know, sometimes you can kind of go and start manipulating and filling everything in. So regularly pause and decide, actually, you know, for example here, do I like that patch of white? I think I do, but I want to just make the shadow at the corner of the mouth a little bit finer there, because it feels a bit too crude a shape, I think. And I know some people struggle with that feeling of marks being more abstract than they want and wanting to manipulate. So it's just a discerning that happens as the more you paint, the more you decide, and the more you know what you like maybe, and how much definition you want and how much fine-tuning. I think fine-tuning is exciting when it's worked over something quite expressive. It's not quite dry enough for this, but I want to stop it reading as a swollen lip, so I'm just putting some shadow in there. It's okay. Now, I think I could do with defining that other eye a little bit. Just put that eyebrow across a little bit further. So the inner corner of the eyebrow comes across further than the inner corner of the eye does. And the inner corner of the eye there has got a warmth to it that I'll just touch in. It's nice working wet over wet because the touches you make aren't very sharp then, and you know, we're not sharp, we don't have sharp edges, so it's quite a good thing, I think, to have this capacity to let one colour bleed into another and make it read more than a skin. And I was speaking in the last video there about in the video where I did the self-portrait wet over wet before, I was speaking about how it's useful to maybe notice the position of the eyes in relationship to each other. I want to excavate out around the pupil again there a little bit, just to give a little bit of a feeling of detail. And I could have some green. This is Viridian green now that I'm putting in. Just bring a bit of colour into the iris. Okay, I was talking about the position of the eyes, and sometimes when you're doing a self-portrait you'll find that you're studying one eye and then you're studying the other eye, and actually they don't work together. So keep an eye on the position of both eyes as you're working on them, so that you're not, I think what I find I have to do is to bring whichever eye I've painted first, I have to bring the other eye across a little bit more than it is as I'm seeing it in the mirror, so that they both look as though they're looking in the same direction. But first, I'll just find the position, so that everything else will stay the same. It's just the iris that moves, not the eye or anything. So the iris, I think, will be just dotting in colour in order to make it read as the eye position for me, just gradually. And now I'm going to lift out. I've got some cadmium red on the brush. I wanted to bring in some cadmium red there in order to get it reading a skin colour between the eyebrow and the eye. I might even clean the brush again and take out a little bit more of that. It seems quite light, that colour, as I'm looking at myself. The skin between the eye and the eyebrow. Okay, and now it's all reading as a bit green, all of that area, so that's where I want to bring in some more. Well, I'm just going to use cadmium red and see. Oh my goodness, bleeding eye. I think it's okay though. I leave it because I might enjoy putting something dark into that eye later on. And now I think I could put some, and you see how it continues to dissipate anyway. Just going to bring some of that Jackson's orange, and all that fluidity has dropped down into the eye. I didn't realize the channel was open there, but it's okay. Really, this is a bit of an exercise in trusting the process, and that whatever happens is valid and fine. There's no panic. I'm enjoying this Jackson's orange. Just finding places for it to go. We did a bit of dancing yesterday down in the Glen. I don't know if you've seen videos of me painting Danny. It's Danny who has started up a dance group in Roslyn out in the park. And it's great. We had great fun dancing together. He is a good speaker, so we had nice loud music. A few people kind of walking their dogs wondering what the hell's going on. It's free dancing. It's not like any very choreographed at all, you know. It's just letting the body respond, which is a very satisfying thing. A bit like this kind of painting, actually. Just allowing what wants to come. But I suppose I am looking at my face and deciding in relation to what I'm seeing in the mirror where to put the tones. Right, sometimes when you want to make it darker and you put the colour on, it ends up lifting off the colour that's already there. So what I do in that instance is I put more colour, more pigment on, and then just drop it in. Like let it be sucked off the brush by the wet paper. So it's not like you're trying to paint on dark, you're letting the dark be pulled onto the surface. And there's another dark area here where the skin meets the hair. If you want it to be a very clean edge, you would wait until it dried. So by pushing it up with the paintbrush parallel to the paper, pushing it up and lifting, it's letting me create a fairly big area of shadow there. And I know I can again excavate if I need to. That's Maisie. I don't know what she's up to. I know I can excavate later to get the shape of the face back through, but I want to do the same on this side to bring up. Just find an edge. I'm half closing my eyes to see, am I happy with where that position is. I think it just needs to come in a touch here. And again with my eyes half closed, up to meet the underside of the ear. Now the ear will be here. It needs to be lower than where I've got it. But isn't it a lovely thing when you can lift out a shape like that? So in a dark, I wouldn't worry about there being darks down there that you need to retrieve the light from. In fact, it's actually much more satisfying when there is dark paint there to be able to really lift out the light. But you'll need to experiment with which colours let you lift them out and which ones are more stubborn. Okay, I'm just going to continue with a little bit of a warmer forehead there. Yeah, I think it'll be tomorrow before it'll be dry enough in the nose and the eye to do any. Not tomorrow, but you know, it'll be late. It'll be after this video, so I might come back with a part 3. Yeah, and even for places like that too, there's no point in trying to find definition with a hard edge if the paint is dry. But I can bring in the hair to meet that transition between jaw and neck. And I'll continue with the dark hair, so the blue and brown mixed together, really quite dark pigment I'm going to use to find where the hair meets the shoulder and goes around the back of the shoulder there, just as a way of explaining the position of the shoulder. And bring the dark in here. And there's a little bit of hair that's folding down. Of course, you decide, you don't have to do everything, you decide what goes in and what doesn't. So building in pauses means that you can make an informed decision about what you want to include. And I would err on the side of less. I would err on the side of less, yeah. Just well-informed choices. Maybe well observed, really. Very wet still. Just letting colour be a distinguishing factor in the eye area there. So a bit of the cadmium red dropped in along with a darker ultramarine blue and Van Dyke brown mix. And there I want to put in something, I don't have any burnt sienna left, but just maybe the tail end of it there is what I'm putting in to describe the hair. And if you don't have burnt sienna, you could always mix cadmium red with the brown. Cadmium red and Van Dyke brown will give you a fairly good burnt sienna-ish tone. I'm not sure if I want it all the way up there. I wonder if I might stop fairly soon now. And I'd advise you to do this, to stop and work on a different painting or go away for a break and come back. And when you come back, 3 things will have happened. You'll have a fresh eye and your painting will be drier, so you can continue working over it more easily when you come back. And I might do that because I can feel the tendency to chase things now coming in. Alright, yeah, I'm gonna stop. The last thing I want to do, because my eye is quite bright around the pupil this morning with the way the light is coming in the window, I want to excavate out that light around the pupil on that eye, knowing that later on I can make it darker again. Things like I can make the lid a little bit darker. I might even make it darker right now so that it's not looking so stark, that pupil. Just a touch of of a diagonal line, and I bring the pupil down a touch lower into the newly excavated paint, the newly excavated iris colour. And it's just, so this is quite a dry colour. I'm bringing the pupil down a bit lower because I took off more of the iris than I wanted, and I was starting to look a bit like a serial killer or something. And then just the upper lid and the other angle of the eyebrow going back the way there, and maybe here too. If it's anyway, dry it all over there. Okay, now you can see that that's very nondescript in relation to the other eye, which is quite clear. When I come back, it might be that I leave it that way and leave the eye without being defined. You can see. Something there. I want to break that channel. So I'm just using a damp brush, and as well as breaking that channel, I could make it. What I want to do is to make the shadow in the lip on the left, or I just want to do something more here, and I think bringing in that colour just there and putting water into it will somehow work. Okay, I'm going to bring you a little bit closer, or bring the painting up to you, maybe. There it is. It's quite a bit of detail went in, and there's more to come, I reckon. So thank you very much for watching. Here I am. Thanks for watching, and I think possibly we'll do a step 3 for that one. Okay, have a good day, guys.